America, we have a problem. A problem that has been festering for decades, growing more severe with each passing year. It's big, it's loud, and it's killing our children. The very future of our nation is at stake, as young lives are cut short in senseless acts of violence. It's not a foreign power or a natural disaster. It's a crisis that strikes at the heart of our communities, leaving scars that may never heal. It's something far more insidious, something woven into the fabric of our nation, gun violence. A pervasive issue that has become a grim part of our daily reality. We see it on the news, hear it whispered in hushed tones, and feel it in the pit of our stomachs every time another school bell rings, tinged with the fear that it might be the last. The anxiety is palpable, a constant undercurrent in our lives. The scenes are tragically familiar. Sirens wail, parents frantically search for their children, and news anchors struggle to maintain composure as they report on the unthinkable. Each incident a painful reminder of our collective failure to protect our most vulnerable. Another school shooting, another community shattered. The cycle of grief and outrage continues with no end in sight. And still, we find ourselves asking the same question: how could this happen again? The answers are complex, but the pain is simple and profound. The truth is, these tragedies don't happen in a vacuum. They are the horrific culmination of a complex web of factors, from the easy accessibility of firearms to the powerful influence of pro-gun lobbyists. The interplay of these elements creates a perfect storm of violence and inaction. But amidst the finger-pointing and the political posturing, one thing remains abundantly clear: this is a uniquely American problem. A problem that demands a uniquely American solution rooted in our values and our commitment to change, and it's past time we did something about it. The future of our children and our nation depends on it. Let's talk numbers, folks. Numbers that reveal the stark reality of gun violence in America. Because sometimes, the cold, hard facts speak louder than any impassioned plea. Facts that cannot be ignored or dismissed. As of 2025, there have been huge number of school shootings in the United States, more than one per week. This alarming frequency highlights a systemic issue. Let that sink in for a moment. Each incident represents a community shattered, lives forever changed. We're not talking about isolated incidents here. This is a pervasive issue affecting every corner of the nation. We're talking about a relentless epidemic. An epidemic that demands urgent action and comprehensive solutions. The human cost is immeasurable. Families are torn apart, and communities are left to pick up the pieces. Beyond the grief, the statistics paint a grim picture. A picture that demands our attention and action. Gun-related deaths add up to over children and teenagers in the U.S. These numbers are a stark reminder of the vulnerability of our youth. These aren't just numbers on a page. They represent real children with real dreams whose lives were cut tragically short. They represent real children with real dreams whose lives were cut tragically short. Each statistic is a story of loss and heartbreak. And the truly heartbreaking part? These tragedies are preventable. With the right measures, we can save lives and protect our future. Countries with stricter gun control laws like Australia have demonstrated that it is possible to create a safer environment for children. These examples show us a path forward, so why does America continue to lag behind? What is holding us back from making meaningful change? Why do we continue to accept this unacceptable status quo? It's time to question our complacency and demand better. It's time to face the uncomfortable truth. The problem isn't the guns themselves, it's us. Our policies, our culture, our inaction. We've allowed ourselves to become numb to the violence, complacent in the face of tragedy. This numbness is a barrier to change, and until we break free from this collective apathy, the cycle of bloodshed will continue. It's time to take a stand and demand a safer future for all. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? The issue that everyone knows about but few dare to confront head-on, or, more accurately, the elephant gun in the room. The symbol of a deeply entrenched culture that glorifies firearms, the National Rifle Association. For decades, the NRA has held an iron grip on American politics, shaping policies and influencing lawmakers, wielding its considerable wealth and influence to stymie any attempts at meaningful gun control. The NRA has become a political juggernaut. Their message is simple, effective, and utterly terrifying. Guns are good, regulations are bad. And they have the resources to spread this message far and wide. Any attempt to limit access to firearms is framed as an assault on your freedom, a direct attack on the American way of life. They've successfully tapped into a deep-seated fear among a segment of the population, a fear that is both primal and powerful, convincing them that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. A narrative that oversimplifies a complex issue. Never mind the fact that this simplistic argument ignores the complexities of gun violence, including the socio-economic factors that contribute to it, or that the vast majority of gun deaths are not the result of self-defense, but rather suicides, domestic violence, and accidents. The NRA has mastered the art of fear-mongering, framing any attempt at reasonable gun control as the first step towards a tyrannical government confiscating everyone's weapons. This rhetoric, while demonstrably false, has proven remarkably effective in swaying politicians and mobilizing a vocal base of supporters. This rhetoric, while demonstrably false, has proven remarkably effective in swaying politicians and mobilizing a vocal base of supporters. The result? A legislative system held hostage by the gun lobby, where common-sense gun control measures are DOA. The result? A legislative system held hostage by the gun lobby, where common-sense gun control measures are DOA. And until we break the NRA's stranglehold on our political system, the bloodshed will continue. The cycle of violence will remain unbroken. And until we break the NRA's stranglehold on our political system, the bloodshed will continue. The cycle of violence will remain unbroken. Welcome to Washington, D.C., where common sense goes to die a slow, agonizing death at the hands of political gridlock. Here, the wheels of progress grind to a halt, and the voices of the people are drowned out by the cacophony of partisan bickering. It's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as the Second Amendment. A horrific mass shooting occurs, sparking a national outcry for stricter gun control. The media covers the tragedy extensively, and for a brief moment it seems like change might be possible. Politicians offer thoughts and prayers, but meaningful action, not so much. They stand before cameras, delivering heartfelt speeches, but behind closed doors, the status quo remains firmly in place. See, in the United States, we don't have a gun problem, we have a Congress problem. A Congress that is more interested in maintaining power and pleasing donors than in enacting policies that could save lives. A Congress so deeply entrenched in partisan warfare, so beholden to special interests, hello again NRA, that they'd rather see another school full of children gunned down than risk upsetting their corporate overlords or losing their cushy seats in the next election. The influence of the NRA and other lobbying groups cannot be overstated. They wield immense power over our lawmakers. It's a vicious cycle of inaction. Each tragedy is met with the same hollow promises and empty gestures, while the root causes of gun violence remain unaddressed. Democrats, for the most part, support stricter gun control measures. They propose bills and push for reforms, but their efforts are often stymied by the opposition. Republicans, beholden to the gun lobby and their base, block any meaningful legislation. They argue that gun control infringes on Second Amendment rights, and they use fear-mongering tactics to rally their supporters. And the American people are left caught in the crossfire, forced to bear the brunt of their elected officials' cowardice. Families mourn their lost loved ones, communities are shattered, and the cycle of violence continues unabated. This isn't about partisan politics, folks. It's about the fundamental responsibility of our government to protect its citizens, a responsibility that is being woefully neglected. It's about basic human decency. It's about recognizing the value of every human life and taking steps to ensure that our children can grow up in a world where they feel safe. It's about protecting our children, our communities, our future. We need comprehensive solutions that address not just the symptoms, but the root causes of gun violence. It's about demanding better from our elected officials, about holding them accountable for their inaction. We must use our voices and our votes to push for the change we so desperately need. Because until we break through this political gridlock, the cycle of violence will continue. The time for change is now, and it starts with us. Section 5. A parent's worst nightmare. Practical advice in a time of crisis. Being a parent is hard enough without worrying about your child getting shot at school. The constant fear and anxiety can be overwhelming, making it difficult to focus on everyday tasks. But this is the reality we live in, folks. School shootings have become a tragic part of our society, leaving communities shattered and parents in perpetual fear. A reality where active shooter drills are as commonplace as fire drills. These drills, while necessary, can be traumatic for children, instilling a sense of fear and helplessness. Where bulletproof backpacks are marketed as back-to-school essentials, the commercialization of safety gear highlights the pervasive nature of the threat. It's enough to make you want to lock your kid in a panic room. The instinct to protect can sometimes lead to extreme measures, but isolation isn't the answer. But we can't live in fear. It's crucial to find a balance between vigilance and normalcy, ensuring our children feel safe without being constantly scared. Equip yourself with knowledge and tools to keep your children safe. Understanding the best practices for safety can empower you and your family. Talk to your kids about gun violence. Open and honest conversations can help them understand the importance of safety without instilling unnecessary fear. Teach them what to do in an emergency. Practical knowledge can be empowering, giving children the confidence to act decisively if needed. Recognize the signs of someone who might be a threat. Awareness and vigilance can be key in preventing potential incidents. Familiarize yourself with your child's school safety plan. Knowing the procedures can help you and your child feel more secure. Advocate for more robust security measures. Schools need adequate resources to implement effective safety protocols. You are your child's biggest advocate. Your voice can make a difference in pushing for necessary changes in school safety policies. Beyond practical measures, change the culture that allows gun violence. Addressing the root causes is essential for long-term solutions. Talk to your friends and neighbors about sensible gun control. Community support can amplify efforts to enact meaningful legislation. Vote for candidates who prioritize gun safety. Your vote can help elect leaders committed to making schools safer. Donate to organizations working to end gun violence. Financial support can bolster efforts to create safer communities, create a society where children don't have to live in fear. Together we can build a future where safety is a given, not a luxury. Section 6, Fort Knox Elementary, the rise of school security measures. Remember the good old days when the biggest security threat at school was sneaking an extra juice box in your lunchbox? Yeah, me neither. Back then, schools were places of learning and fun, not fortresses. These days, schools across America are starting to resemble maximum security prisons. The transformation is stark and unsettling, with institutions investing heavily in security infrastructure. We're talking metal detectors, surveillance cameras, armed guards, the works. These measures are designed to deter potential threats and ensure immediate response in case of an emergency. And while nobody wants their child's school to feel like a prison, the sad reality is that these measures are becoming increasingly necessary in our gun-saturated society. Parents and educators are caught in a difficult position, balancing safety with a nurturing environment. Schools are implementing active shooter drills, teaching kids how to run, hide, fight in the event of an attack. These drills, though essential, can be traumatic and create a climate of fear among students. Some schools are even going as far as issuing bulletproof backpacks and whiteboards, turning classrooms into potential bunkers. These items are marketed as life-saving tools, but they also symbolize the extreme measures we're taking. But here's the thing, These security measures, while well-intentioned, are just band-aids on a gaping wound. They address the symptoms but not the disease, offering a false sense of security. They might make us feel safer in the short term, but they do nothing to address the root causes of gun violence. Communities are left grappling with the underlying issues that lead to such tragedies. We're essentially trying to fortify our way out of a problem that requires a much more fundamental solution: addressing our country's obsession with guns. Activists and concerned citizens are calling for comprehensive reforms to tackle this crisis. Because until we tackle that issue head-on, no amount of security measures will truly keep our children safe. The ultimate goal should be to create an environment where kids can learn and grow without fear. Section 7. A Glimmer of Hope. Lessons from Across the Pond. It's easy to get bogged down in despair when talking about America's gun problem. The constant news of shootings, the political gridlock, and the seeming inability to make any progress can be overwhelming. But believe it or not, there is a glimmer of hope. There are examples from around the world that show us change is possible, even in the face of daunting challenges. Other countries have faced similar challenges and emerged victorious. Take Australia, for example. Their journey wasn't easy, but it offers valuable lessons. After a horrific mass shooting in 1996, they took swift action. The Port Arthur massacre was a turning point that galvanized the nation. They banned semi-automatic weapons, implemented a buyback program, and tightened gun laws. This comprehensive approach addressed multiple facets of the issue. The results were dramatic. Gun deaths plummeted and mass shootings became virtually non-existent. The data speaks for itself, showing a clear correlation between stricter laws and reduced violence. Or consider Japan, with incredibly strict gun control laws. Their approach is rooted in a cultural emphasis on safety and responsibility. To own a gun in Japan, you need to attend a class, pass a test, and undergo a mental health evaluation. This rigorous process ensures that only those who are truly qualified can own firearms. The result? Japan has one of the lowest gun violence rates in the world. Their method shows that strict regulations can lead to a safer society. Now, I know what you're thinking, but John, this is America. Our culture and history are different. We have the Second Amendment. It's a fundamental part of our identity and legal framework. We can't just take everyone's guns away. The debate is deeply entrenched and highly polarized, and you're right, we can't. But that doesn't mean we should do nothing. But that doesn't mean we can't learn from other countries and adapt their successes. We can take elements that work and tailor them to fit our unique context. The right to bear arms should not supersede the right to live in a safe society. We need to find a balance that respects both rights. We need to balance these rights and protect our citizens. Community involvement and open dialogue are crucial in finding workable solutions. It's not easy, but it's necessary. The journey will be challenging, but the potential rewards are worth the effort, because the alternative is simply unacceptable. We owe it to future generations to strive for a safer, more peaceful society. Section 8. The Human Cost. Stories of Loss and Resilience. Behind every grim statistic, every heart-wrenching news report, there are real people whose lives have been irrevocably changed by gun violence. These are not just numbers. They are mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters whose futures have been stolen. Parents who will never again hug their children, who must now navigate a world that feels empty and cruel without their loved ones. Children forced to grow up without their parents, carrying the weight of loss and the burden of memories that should have been filled with joy. Communities forever scarred by tragedy, where the echoes of gunshots linger in the air, and the sense of safety has been shattered. We hear their stories, witness their pain, and yet, somehow, we still struggle to fully comprehend the magnitude of their loss. The depth of their grief is a chasm that words can scarcely bridge. The emptiness that lingers long after the cameras have moved on, a haunting reminder of lives cut short and dreams unfulfilled. The constant fear that shadows their every move, a relentless anxiety that the nightmare could happen again. The knowledge that their lives will never be the same, that the person they lost can never be replaced. and the hole in their hearts will never fully heal. But amidst the unimaginable grief, there are also stories of extraordinary resilience. People who refuse to be defined by their suffering, who rise from the ashes of their pain to fight for change, survivors who channel their pain into activism, turning their personal tragedies into powerful calls for action and reform. Demanding change and fighting for a safer future, these individuals become beacons of hope in a landscape darkened by loss. Families who find solace in supporting one another, creating bonds of solidarity and understanding that help them navigate their grief. Creating a community of shared grief and unwavering love where the collective strength helps to mend broken hearts. These stories, both heartbreaking and inspiring, remind us that this fight is about more than just statistics and political maneuvering. It's about the human spirit's capacity to endure and the urgent need for compassion and change. It's about real people, real lives, and the urgent need to create a world where these tragedies are no longer commonplace. A world where safety and peace are not just dreams, but realities for everyone. Gap 3S, Section 9, The Power of Community Mobilization. In the face of overwhelming odds, it is often the power of community that drives real change. Communities come together, united by a common cause, to amplify their voices and demand justice. Across the nation, grassroots organizations are stepping up, fueled by the passion and determination of ordinary citizens who refuse to accept gun violence as the status quo. These groups are often the first responders to the needs of their communities, providing immediate support and long-term solutions. These groups, often started by survivors and affected families, are mobilizing their communities, organizing marches, and holding town halls to demand action. They share their personal stories to highlight the human cost of gun violence and to rally others to their cause. They are creating networks of support and advocacy, proving that when people come together, they have the power to make a difference. These networks provide emotional support, resources, and a platform for collective action. From local initiatives to national movements, these community-driven efforts are shining a light on the path forward. They demonstrate that change is possible at every level, from small towns to large cities. They remind us that change doesn't always come from the top down, but can be ignited from the ground up. Grassroots movements have the unique ability to connect with people on a personal level, fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility. These movements are not just about policy change, but about cultural shifts, about creating a society that values life and safety above all else. They work to change the narrative around gun violence, promoting peace and understanding. They inspire us to believe that a better future is possible, and that each of us has a role to play in making it a reality. By participating in these movements, individuals can contribute to a larger cause and help build a safer, more compassionate world. It's a powerful reminder that together, we are stronger, and together, we can create the change we wish to see in the world. Collective action has the potential to transform societies and bring about lasting change. Section 9. A Call to Action, Breaking the Cycle of Inaction. This is the moment to reflect on our collective responsibility and the steps we must take to ensure a safer future. We've talked a lot about problems, folks. We've delved into the complexities and the multifaceted nature of gun violence in America, about the NRA's chokehold on our political system, and how their influence has stymied progress at every turn, about the legislative gridlock that prevents meaningful change, leaving us stuck in a cycle of inaction and frustration, about the devastating human cost of our inaction, the lives lost, the families shattered, and the communities forever changed. But this isn't a time for despair. It's a time to harness our collective strength and push for change. It's a time for action. We must channel our frustration into constructive efforts that can make a real difference. The good news is, we, the people, have the power to break this cycle of violence. Our voices, our votes, and our actions can drive the change we seek. We can choose to elect officials who prioritize gun safety over gun lobby contributions. By supporting candidates committed to reform, we can shift the balance of power. We can demand that our elected officials enact sensible gun control measures, like universal background checks, assault weapons bans, and red flag laws. These measures are not just policies, they are lifelines for our communities. We can support organizations working tirelessly to end gun violence and hold politicians accountable. These groups need our backing to continue their vital work. This isn't about taking away anyone's guns. It's about ensuring that gun ownership comes with a commitment to safety and responsibility. This is about responsible gun ownership, about creating a culture where safety is paramount, about keeping firearms out of the hands of those who would do harm. It's about implementing checks and balances that protect us all. This is about creating a safer, more just society for ourselves, our children, and generations to come. A society where everyone can feel secure in their homes, schools, and communities. So call your representatives, donate to gun control advocacy groups, and support the tireless efforts of those on the front lines of this battle. Vote for candidates who prioritize common-sense gun reform. Your vote is a powerful tool for change. Make your voices heard, folks. Speak out, organize, and advocate for the changes we need. Because silence in the face of this epidemic is simply not an option. We must confront this issue head-on. Is simply not an option. The time for thoughts and prayers is over. The time for thoughts and prayers is over. We need tangible actions and policies that will save lives. The time for action is now. Together we can create a future free from the scourge of gun violence.